Specific request tonight from members of the Briars community that candidates declare any political party membership, association or endorsement in their opening presentation. So I pass that on as a request that's come from your community tonight. So let's roll into it. And our first candidate for the Briars ward is Peter Orton. Peter is a long-term resident of Mornington with 40 years experience in commercial, private and not-for-profit boards, as well as business ownership and operation. Peter's been chair of the not-for-profit Peninsula Voice since 2013 and has worked for over 100 local organisations and groups. Peter Orton.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate all the candidates for having the courage to put up their hands and represent their communities. I really believe we have a difficult job ahead. This council election is probably the most important in 30 years as we drag ourselves out of COVID-19, both socially and financially. We're going to need councillors who demonstrate drive, commitment, experience, and the ability to work through complexity. We need councillors who have the demonstrated ability to listen and to work collaboratively. I have extensive experience in 3 of the most important areas, I believe, governance, business, and social development. I've served as a director on numerous commercial, private, and not-for-profit boards. I have over 40 years experience in business ownership and operation. I understand the challenges our businesses are going to face. I also have 8 years experience heading up the local not-for-profit community development group, Peninsula Voice. With Peninsula Voice, I've worked with over 120 groups and organisations. I have strong relationships with these groups and have the ability to help them work collaboratively for the good of the community. Importantly, I'm an independent, self-funded candidate, and I'm running because I want to do this. I care about my community. I will work purposefully to make things happen, and I have the runs on the board to prove I can do this. As a Briars Ward councillor, I will be able to continue the work I'm currently doing. I know I can make a positive contribution and I have a passion to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Our next candidate for the Briars ward is Janet Street. Janet is a Mornington resident, actively involved in local community issues. Janet describes herself as a strategic thinker. She's astute and perceptive with an ability to engage with local community on local issues. Janet Street.
Thank you, Tracy. My name is Janet. I'm a local resident in the Briars ward. I'm not a member of any political party, and I'm not endorsed by any political party. I'm running because I was involved in local activist work to stop inappropriate development on the peninsula, and I was approached by people to encourage me to go for council. My key campaign issues are climate change and protecting the environment, support and recovery post-COVID-19, but also rebuilding and supporting people during the current pandemic, particularly business owners and local residents, mental health issues. And most importantly is addressing the homelessness on the peninsula, which will be increased due to the current situation that we are facing. It is a local government issue, and I think it's one that needs addressing at the moment, and there's no social housing adequate enough, I don't think, to house the current population of homeless on the peninsula. I'm certainly passionate about the environment, and I'm certainly have received many phone calls since this campaign of people seeking my particular views on various issues, such as protecting the green wedge, both within this Briars ward and particularly in the Red Hill ward as well. I'm particularly interested in renewable energy projects, and I am passionate about actually seeing if there's any other community members wanting to get a community energy project up and running in this particular ward. I feel that's a really important issue, particularly with the current environment where we're seeking more support during summer periods due to bushfires and also the global warming effects on the peninsula.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
Our next candidate in the Briars ward is Dion Mullet-Trelaw. Dion is a qualified pilot with a double degree in aviation and business, economics and management. He's been an airline captain for the Royal Flying Doctor Service and a footy captain with his local footy club, and an advocate for community, small business and the environment. Dion Mullet-Trelaw.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I'm Dion. I live in Mount Eliza. I've lived here the last couple of years after working all around the country for about 8 years. So very happy to be back here on the peninsula in this beautiful part of the world. As Tracy said, I have a degree in business and aviation that focused heavily on economics and management, which I think would serve me well at council. And while I was away from Victoria, seeing other parts of the world, I saw other parts of Australia where I was working. I've seen, what's good about different areas of Australia and the issues that are out there. I certainly saw what issues mining can bring to places like WA when I was working there, and overdevelopment from when I was living in Sydney for 2 years. So I just want to make sure that these damaging themes don't come onto the peninsula. I think we've got incredible opportunities here through tourism, hospitality, outdoor recreation, and fantastic business opportunities across those sectors. So I think in this COVID recovery, which will be really important, I'd like to support small business and make the most of what the peninsula has to offer down here through those opportunities. I'll also be focusing on protecting the environment. I'm endorsed by the Australian Greens, so this will be a heavy focus for me, protecting that environment, stopping overdevelopment, and making the most of the peninsula for our future generations.
Thank you, Dion. Our next candidate for the Briars ward is Belinda Rodman. Belinda's lived on the peninsula for 20 years and ran a successful hospitality business before setting up an HR consultancy in Mount Eliza. Belinda holds a Masters of Business degree and has contributed as a volunteer on Shire committees, including the Shire's Disability Advisory Committee. Belinda Rodman.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much to Georgia and Tracy for organising this virtual town hall. I'll start off by saying that I'm an independent, self-funded candidate. So my background is that I've actually lived on every continent except Antarctica for family and work reasons, and about 20 years ago was given the opportunity to literally choose anywhere in the world to move and raise my family and set up a small business. And I'm very proud and pleased to say that I chose the Mornington Peninsula to do that. As Tracy said, I initially set up a hospitality business, which was actually over in Balnarring, and then about 10 years ago moved over to Mount Eliza, where I'm running a human resources business and helping people to find jobs in obviously what is a very difficult time. One of my sons unfortunately contracted meningitis when he was 3, and that left him profoundly deaf. Now he has gone on to lead a very successful life, but his story has inspired me to work in particular in the area of inclusion and access for all. So that was why I joined the Shire's Disability Advisory Committee a few years ago and have been working very hard there to advocate and push for change, not just for people with disabilities, but really inclusion for everyone, from babies through to senior citizens. We all deserve to have the ability to do whatever we want to do. And especially ratepayers, we're all ratepayers. It doesn't matter what our level of ability happens to be. Those skills that I have developed working on those committees, I now want to use as one of the hopeful 3 Shire councillors to actually make change across other things, push for recovery from COVID and obviously climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Peter Fitzgerald. For the Briars is Peter Fitzgerald. Peter is an aviation maintenance owner based at the Tyre Bearfield and describes himself as a team player who understands the importance of listening and considering input from all members of the team to get the best outcome for all involved. Peter Fitzgerald.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and many thanks to Georgia and Tracy for organising this virtual town hall. My name's Peter Fitzgerald, and I'm running as a candidate in the upcoming council election as an independent. As I said in my candidate statement, I have lived on the peninsula most of my life, apart from moving for work purposes. This is a truly special place to live, and I would like to assist in making it even better. I'm an airline captain and own a small aircraft maintenance business in Tyre that employs 5 people. My priorities if elected would be to enhance road, path and track maintenance, assist local businesses wherever possible so as to provide better employment and training opportunities for all people who want to work. As a council, we should behave in an economically and environmentally responsible manner, and we should also, as a council, act in a consultative way and listen to our constituents. I'm not afraid of hard work, and if elected, will endeavour to achieve what's important to all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter.
Okay.
Our next candidate in the Briars ward is Despy O'Connor. Despy's an educator and long-term resident with a 30-year involvement in community organisations spanning kindergarten committees to successful sports clubs, including Mount Martha Basketball, Lifesaving Club, and work in the not-for-profit sector with the YMCA. Former council officer at Baw Shire, she is currently a teacher at Mount Martha Primary. Despy O'Connor.
Thanks, Tracy. And thank you, Georgia, for your acknowledgement of country tonight. I just wanted to let people know that I am passionate about my community. I've been working, as Tracy said, for a long time with my communities and trying to get things done and listening to them, really listening and finding out what people want to get done and to make sure that follows through. So, for example, with the basketball club, only starting off with a few children, girls actually who wanted to play basketball and turning that into a 50+ team sporting club over 3 or 4 years. It's now into its 11th year. It's, you know, those sort of things are really important to me. And it was because of the community driving that behind me that actually got me to do that. So I'm here for my community and I want to be your voice. I did work for council in Baw and I learnt how to work for council across all the different platforms that council have. And I know that many people understand that council feels a little bit like silos at times, but I was able to pull together a project, an 18-month project, where we actually got the silos talking to each other and engaging and getting things to our communities so that we had active communities. One of the big things that I really want to do as well in this community is make sure that it's connected. So connected communities are strong. They're strong mentally, they're strong physically.
And because in the past we...
That's really important to me. And yeah, otherwise, Tracy, I just want to make sure that it's a balanced approach to decision making. Thank you.
Unmute myself. Thanks very much, Despy, and apologies for that interruption. Could I just remind everybody in the virtual town hall, for the benefit and fairness of the candidates in particular, who you've come along to hear from tonight, that you should mute your microphones, please. So thanks very much, Despy, and apologies for that interruption. Our next candidate in the Briars ward tonight is Bruce Rankin. Bruce grew up on the peninsula and brings a background as a former councillor with Nillumbuk Shire, where he served as deputy mayor and chair of a number of committees, including finance and governance and social infrastructure. Bruce brings significant experience as a business person. He served on a number of boards and worked with community and a range of sporting organisations. Bruce Rankin.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Georgia, for organising this evening's meeting. I think it's a great opportunity for residents. So cut straight to the chase. Yes, grew up here in on the Mornington Peninsula in Mount Eliza, went to Kungyoung Primary School, Flinders Christian Community College, and then over to Mount Eliza High. Why do I say that? Because I've recently returned back to the peninsula. Over the years, I've been coming down and listening to friends and family, and they keep saying, we need your experience. As Tracy highlighted, a past councillor, I have the knowledge and the experience to be able to keep rates low, preferably at a 0% rate increase, without reducing services, but by managing budgets, by building more community hubs, not just for sports, but also for seniors groups and broader community use. I was appointed as Chair of Finance and Governance, and we reduced the council debt by half. That's right, council debt by half. We had 2 years of 0 rate increases and 2 years of below rate cap. As Chair of Social Infrastructure, we built 9 new pavilions and also appointed as Council's Audit and Risk Committee nominee. During the time we built those 9 pavilions, we advocated extremely hard to both state and federal governments to be able to secure the funding. I will continue to focus on the essentials, on road maintenance, footpaths, waste management, and our parks. I will advocate hard for a solar farm to be delivered on our old tip sites and to maintain our green wedge with a strong focus in strategic planning, which is the key to stop overdevelopments. I understand that to build trust with our ratepayers, we need excellence within our community consultation and transparency. I delivered these outcomes in the past as a previous councillor in another green wedge shire at Nillumbik and hope to do the same here. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce Rankin. Our next candidate in the Briars ward is Julia McCarthy. Julia's lived in Mount Eliza for over a decade and is a marketing professional with a background in the finance industry. She's actively involved in local community, including the local and national Multiple Births Association through to local schools committees. Julia McCarthy.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Georgia, for organising tonight. It's certainly been a challenging time to decide to run for council, not only because of the stage 4 restrictions, but because until last week I had 3 children completing their schooling at home, including my twins who turn 6 tomorrow. Alongside that, like most households, my husband and I have been working at home since March, and my mother-in-law, who lives with us, has had to find a new routine after having her activities severely curtailed. Yes, we have 3 generations living under our roof. I'm a first-time candidate, but I'm far from inexperienced with representing my community. After leaving the paid workforce, including senior marketing roles in fast-paced and demanding environments at Morgan Stanley in London and ANZ in Melbourne, I've been deeply involved in voluntary roles at my children's school as president of the Parents Association and on the school board. And I'm also the current president of our local Multiple Birth Association, which covers Kingston, Frankston, and all of the Mornington Peninsula. My dedication to these roles has prompted a few taps on the shoulder and the suggestion made to me that I might be interested in running for council. It's also perfect that running for council was an unfulfilled wish of my late mother's, who is my inspiration for my community involvement. I've lived in the Woodlands area of Mount Eliza for the last 11 years, and I love the Mornington Peninsula. I'll be delighted to represent you in the discussions at council about how the peninsula will recover from COVID and be a vibrant place where families want to raise their children and people dream of retiring. I want local businesses to be supported, as well as our local not-for-profit organisations. I want to preserve our natural environment, especially our green wedge, while not making planning processes more onerous and expensive. I think there's a long way to go with improving the communication between council and residents. I'm capable and I have the time, drive, and the family support to be on council.
Thank you very much, Julia. Our next candidate in the Briars ward is Steve Holland. Steve's a lifelong resident and a small business owner based in Mount Eliza. Peninsula Grammar alumni, Steve holds a Bachelor of Communication from RMIT, is committed to transparency, accountability and improving local amenity and assisting small business post-COVID recovery. Steve Holland.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the organisers tonight and for so many people for joining us. It's a difficult time to connect with the community, as you can imagine, so it's great to see so many people dialed in. I think there's a lot of difficult tasks ahead for a newly elected council, and I really think that the COVID recovery will be community-led and also small business driven. So myself, in short, as Tracy said, I'm a lifelong resident and small business owner, and I'm also a long-time Liberal Party member. I was thinking about running before the first March lockdown, and I think when that lockdown occurred, I was probably more energised than ever, because I think we need a very strong advocate, someone who listens to the community, and also someone that puts the community's priorities first, someone that is able to make sure that council's priorities are reflective of the community's priorities. The Mornington Peninsula has been hit very hard. I've heard many of the stories firsthand, and I think I'm well placed, given my experience, to help the community that I love and to really hit the ground running. There's so many important issues that will probably be raised tonight and that have been raised throughout the campaign. I'm looking forward to talking about them. You know, whether it's community infrastructure or footpaths, roads, green wedge protection, planning and enforcement decisions, the list goes on, and all of those are very important. And it's been fantastic to see how many passionate and community-minded people that there are. So in the interest of time, I'm happy to leave it there and encourage you to reach out to me after the event if you'd like to chat about anything. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, very much. Our next candidate is for the Briars ward is Stephen Batty. Stephen is also a long-term Peninsula resident for close to 40 years, with extensive involvement in local schools, clubs and sporting committees. He runs a successful small family business, has a background in accounting and science, and he's also the former operations manager at the Melbourne Cricket Club and Marvel Stadium. Stephen Batty.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've lived on the Mornington Peninsula for 38 years. I've got 3 children and 8 grandchildren, successful businessman, and I now operate a family event management company. I was operations manager of the Melbourne Cricket Ground and was responsible for the aspects of capital works, ground operations, arena, maintenance, events and casual staff. Prior to this, I owned a successful transport company. I'm very passionate about the Mornington Peninsula and spent many years on the Mornington Beach at Mount Martha and also at Mornington at Mills Beach. I thoroughly enjoy all the magnificent attractions, shops and scenery within the area. We are so fortunate here on the peninsula to have rural and urban areas as well as resort living and so many tourist attractions. I'm committed to improve these facilities and infrastructure of the Shire. I want to be joined by independent, successful business people to ensure our long-term growth of our great Shire. The council needs to be more accountable and to reduce the use of consultants and avoid committing money to too many VCAT hearings. The council needs to work in a team environment to represent all ratepayers. We need our streetscapes and our shopping precincts improved, and we need to manage our facilities for recreational users, the cyclists and the motorists. We need to create opportunities and encourage all ratepayers to become involved. The Shire has 30% of its population over 60 years of age, and we need to provide for them, as well as improve facilities for childcare. The council must have a long-term capital projects, e.g. the railway extension to Rosebud, and all forms of public transport needs to be improved. The Shire needs major capital works. We need to work towards an environmental, sustainable Shire that shows financial responsibility. We need to promote local businesses, wineries, and our fabulous attractions. Sporting facilities and outdoor recreation facilities are very important to family wellbeing and should be upgraded facilities to accommodate the growth of many activities. Thank you very much.
Beg your pardon. Turn my mic back on. Thank you very much, Stephen. And our final candidate in the Briars ward for you to meet tonight, 11 of the 15 candidates that we're meeting tonight, is Anthony Marsh. Anthony is a Mount Martha resident and has been involved in a range of community organisations, including sport, as a driving mentor for disadvantaged youth, as a director of a not-for-profit working with children with disabilities, and in maritime rescue. He holds a degree in aero engineering, a master's in business administration, and currently studying law. He's also he is also past service as a commissioned officer in the Royal Australian Air Force. Anthony Marsh.
Thanks, Tracy, and hi everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. This is a great event, so I'll probably double up on a bit of that, so I apologise in advance. So I grew up on the peninsula. I now live in Mount Martha with my wife and my 2 young children. I did study aerospace engineering, and then, like a lot of kids, when they finished school, I left the peninsula to pursue study and then ultimately employment, where I joined the Air Force. After 5 years in the Air Force, I decided to study part-time, and I completed a Master of Business Administration, as I was yearning for a new challenge and to get back into small business and entrepreneurship. At that time, I put it all on the line and I decided to start my own company and give up my day job. Since then, I've started a couple of successful businesses, and I now run a national insurance inspection company from our home in Mount Martha, but we have operations in over 1,300 postcodes across the country, and we're a leader in our field. Fortunately, that put us in a really good position for my wife and my family and I to move back to Mount Martha, which is what we did a few years ago. I've served on several boards, committees and advisory groups across sport, training in academia, in disability, emerging technology, and also as an industry rep on government regulatory and risk management committees. I've been very fortunate in my life. I've got a very supportive family, both with my own parents when I was younger and now with my wife. And that's enabled me to do quite a lot in a relatively short amount of time. I'm an incredibly driven person. I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm very passionate about helping others and giving back and playing a part in my community. As Tracy said, I've been an active volunteer in local clubs and associations across the peninsula for many years, and I get a lot out of doing that. I'm a truly independent candidate. I have absolutely no affiliation or alignment to any party whatsoever. And to be honest, I don't think they play a part in our local government. I have not taken a cent for donations to run my campaign. And I'm here to represent our community in the local context and without any undue influence. Look, we've got a lot of work to do. I have a lot to offer, and I'm motivated to give back to my community so that they can enjoy the peninsula that I was able to, my kids can enjoy the peninsula I was able to enjoy.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, so we move now to the Q&A part of the proceedings tonight. The questions, the process of collating these questions has been derived by theme from questions and issues that have been posted through the Facebook page. Whilst this has allowed a level of transparency and open engagement with local issues in the Briars ward and more broadly in the Shire, it also means that the process is open to being skewed by particular interest groups. So we're aware of that, there have been some recurring themes through these town hall events, but there are also some specifics to the Briars ward. As a career journalist with 35 years experience under my belt, my role has been to distill the issues more broadly and ensure that the questions are framed to ensure fairness and a level playing field for all candidates. That is the intention of these town halls. For expediency, each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each of the questions that we have tonight. We have a lot of candidates, and so it's important that we stick to time. For the same process, 10 seconds, there will be a bell. It's a little faint, but it is there. And then at 5 seconds, I will do the same hand countdown. So it's very obvious that we're at the end of your time. If you go over time, I will interrupt so that we can move on. We are going to stay with the order determined by random.org, but work through the order in a rotation so that we're not always starting with the same person. But due to the number of candidates, we're not going to get through a full rotation. We haven't got time for 11 questions, unfortunately. We'd be here until midnight. Well, whilst it is the best show in town and probably better than Netflix, we probably haven't got until midnight. So we are going to move to our first question this evening, and this first question is to be posed to Janet Street. And again, I stress that these have been derived by theme and they've been very common to the town halls that we've conducted thus far. A number of the candidates have mentioned the impact of COVID, and it's been really inescapable. It's the dominating theme that we're all living with at the moment. And the protracted COVID lockdown has been devastating, as we know, for so many on the Mornington Peninsula, including the metro zoning that has placed further pressure on our local economy. So to you, Janet Street, the first question is, what should the Mornington Peninsula's COVID recovery roadmap look like? Janet?
Sorry about that. Firstly, the roadmap should look like actually consulting with the residents and the Mornington Peninsula population as a whole, getting their input directly into this roadmap for recovery. And I think that should be starting straight away at this very moment, because people are actually really hurting due to this pandemic and the lockdown and the restrictions on local businesses and the increase in violence in the community, in the family violence area. We've got about 9.3% increase as opposed to Melbourne generally. And I think that input locally should occur straight away, because part of it is that businesses are wanting to open. And there's a big push by a certain political group of the state government wanting to release these restrictions, but it's actually a health issue.
Thanks very much, Janet. I'll move to Dion Mullet-Trelaw, the roadmap, the Peninsula's roadmap to post-COVID recovery. Dion.
Great, thanks, Tracy. I've been impacted by COVID directly. I've been stood down from my main career, so I understand how tough it is for people out there. But I think the support I've been given by the government has been fantastic, and financially I'm okay. I think that's probably a different story from what I'm hearing from small business. And I think that's where council can really focus their efforts in helping small business with that recovery. There's a lot we can do here. I know a lot of the ideas that have been talked about surround outdoor dining, but I think this could be extended to retail as well. Even other businesses like barbers, I'm sure they can move outside, but I don't want to be the one to tell businesses how they should operate in a COVID recovery. I would like to hear from businesses to see what council can do for them. So I think we can also bring infrastructure projects forward from council and create jobs that way.
Thanks, Dion. Belinda Rodman.
Yes, I think what needs to happen is just really quick implementation of some of the plans that are already there. So the Shire has actually already developed a bit of a plan around the outside dining, the parklets, so the hardship policies that are in place. I think that there actually could be some additional use of community halls to allow for more distance, socially distanced getting together, the community activities again, because lots of the community organisations are absolutely champing at the bit to get back and working face to face with all of their participants. That's the sort of community connections that need to be re-established. So I think there are already quite a lot of plans in place. I think what the Shire can do is to perhaps cut some red tape so that some of these plans can actually be put into action as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. Peter Fitzgerald.
Yes. What was the question? Sorry.
The roadmap, the Mornington Peninsula's COVID recovery roadmap, Peter. Fitzgerald, what should that look like?
Well, it should consult with business, see what they need, assist them wherever possible, see if we can get any state government funding, if there's any available, of course, and just really try and get the thing going, see what people want. And I don't know, it's quite simple, just help them in any way you possibly can, I guess. That's it.
Thank you, Peter. Despy O'Connor.
Thanks, Tracy. I think absolutely consultation is a huge part of the COVID recovery, but we also need to think about people in general. People are hurting and people are isolated, and to get back, we need to make sure that we connect communities again, and we need to open up some of those, or when we're allowed to, we need to get people back together. So our markets, our open spaces where we can have people together in those spaces and reconnecting. I think to do that, we'll need to do things like removing some of the red tape and offer support. And when I mean offering support, I'm talking about an upstream model rather than a downstream. So not talking about the things that happen at the end and its compliance issues. I'm talking about helping businesses and helping associations and community groups right from the top and give them the power to support their community members. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Despy. Bruce Rankin, the roadmap to recovery post-COVID.
Thanks, Tracy. First of all, I'd just like to highlight in my previous 2 minutes, I failed to highlight that I am a member of the Liberal Party. I'm not endorsed, but I funded my own campaign. The roadmap to recovery, what does that look like? Unfortunately, like Dion, I was also directly impacted back in March. I lost my role as a national manager for a very large recruitment business, which I was all over the country. Got my feet back on the ground and looked towards council because at that particular time I was the chair of finance and governance, and we implemented a 0% rate increase. How do we support small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses here on the peninsula? We need to be able to build a bigger community support network, particularly within the health support and the mental illness component down here on the peninsula. That is probably one of the biggest parts, whilst talking to the community and engaging them through this journey.
Thanks very much, Bruce, and thank you for that acknowledgement of political affiliation. Julia McCarthy, thank you.
I believe council should provide some real rate relief, particularly focused on those on JobKeeper and JobSeeker, and those small businesses that have been closed during the stage 3 and 4 restrictions. Then we need to focus on mental health support too at a local level. After that, stimulating the local economy will require the council to support state and federal government schemes, but with local ideas such as closing a section of Main Street Mornington for outdoor dining and trading. This idea could really work well in areas of Mount Eliza and Mount Martha too. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks very much, Julia. Steve Holland.
Thank you, Tracy. I think there's the obvious examples like rate relief and reduction of fees and charges and red tape. And I happen to agree with Despy. I think we need to work out how we can reconnect the community organisations and such. There's been a big spotlight on things like walking and cycling tracks and things like that. We need to look at what projects we're prioritising in terms of community infrastructure at a council level. And then in terms of the regional metro question, which you had in your preamble, my view is that we should be regional, but that's a state government change. So I think that's going to take some long-term advocacy to get that changed. And that's been my long-held view even prior to coronavirus for all sorts of reasons.
Thank you, Steve. Stephen Batty.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, a lot of our recovery is by state and federal policies as far as the big ticket items are concerned, but our local government can do things. We can advertise and we can shop locally. We can encourage tourists to come down. We can open our caravan parks a little bit earlier than the 19th of December. There's so much that we can do, and the council have been very generous in giving permits and etc. and breaking down some red tape, but we also be very mindful that our budgets this year, we don't want them to flow on to next year. And so we've got to be careful of what our expenditures are. But mainly we should have a plan in case there is another outbreak. We should be isolating areas like the quarantine. But if there is a case that we have that, we should be locating a particular hospital on this area that only covers those people that do unfortunately pick up COVID-19, that, instead of spreading it further. So we've got to be more flexible. And we've got to have an event. Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I'm sorry, I've really got to stick to time because, Anthony Marsh.
Yeah, so first I'd like to echo Desi's points. I think it's really important that we look after the community and build connectivity amongst our community. But in terms of businesses, I'd really like to see us expand our economic development area. I think that group or that team is underfunded. And I'd also love to see us establish some business action recovery groups. We've got other advisory panels and groups across the council, but we don't seem to bring our business expertise into council from the community. And we're not the experts, right? So we really need to tap into those different businesses who are in all different sectors and geographic areas across the peninsula and find out what they think will work. I think we also need to obviously build more innovative and efficient processes to conduct council business, remove the friction so that those engagements can be done as easily as possible, and perhaps provide some fee relief, as well as obviously the rate relief and hardship policies that we should look at. And I think it's really important that we communicate those better. I think one of the common themes that we've heard throughout the campaign is that most people didn't realise it was a hardship policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And the roadmap to recovery post-COVID, our final candidates' view on that. Peter Orton.
Look, I think we're going to have to hit the ground running. I think that the most difficult thing is going to be we're going to have 11 new councillors, and they're going to have to find a way to be able to work together, because we need a clear view for councillors to be able to work together. I like the idea of the Aboriginal term that the getting down in the dirt together, because to me that sort of signifies like being equal, that we've all got one voice, we've all got a different idea, but we need to share our best ideas and talents to be able to form a view for the council collectively. I then think we need the best available evidence, and that will be coming from state, federal, and local. And then the last thing is for the council to be able to then communicate those plans to the community, a bit like what Sam Hearn has done over the last year or so, where he's been able to actually articulate the things that council is doing, what it can't do, and so forth. So I think that communication's key. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter. So thanks to everyone. We're moving on to our next question. We are part of the Briars Virtual Town Hall event with 11 of the 15 candidates who've made themselves available tonight. So thank you again to our candidates. So the next question, and council, the Mornington Shire Council adopted a green wedge management plan in 2018, currently under review, to preserve the vast environmental appeal of the peninsula. I'm going to link this question because we've had a number of questions around green wedge and also around urban planning. So I'm going to link the two. Given that the economic appeal of increased urban development for local council is significant, but the pressure of urban creep is being felt pretty acutely in, I would say, particularly the Briars ward. We've had some specific issues. Can I remind people please to mute if they're not speaking? Specific issues we've had raised through this forum, the Mount Eliza Business College rezoning as part of the green wedge and the preservation of the green break between Mount Eliza and Mornington. So the first question, and this is to Dion Mullett-Treloar around the green wedge. What role should council play in balancing the economics of urban development and the pressure that places on the livability on the peninsula?
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, the green wedge is really important, and this is something that comes up if we do review the regional versus metro determination. So that's something that might be lost if we went to regional. So if we did do that, we'd have to make sure that we maintain that green wedge protection if we were to change to regional. So many people talk about green wedge as a constraint on business or development, but it's also an opportunity. Green wedge means that there's opportunity for agriculture, tourism, wineries. If you have a look at the green wedge document on the Shire website, it's got some fantastic information about the benefits of a green wedge and what opportunities that brings to the peninsula. You've also got the environmental factors of biolinks, biodiversity, and providing those green spaces to residents. So we do need to make sure that we maintain it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dion. Belinda Rodman, what role should council play in balancing the economics of urban development and the pressure that places on the livability on the peninsula, framing that through the green wedge?
I think the green wedge is probably one of the things that makes the peninsula as livable as it is, and it's something that every person that you talk to has an opinion about it. They believe it's really important. I think all of the attitude towards the recent developments, such as on the Mount Eliza business site, had a huge impact on really bring to the fore the importance of the green wedge. So I think that it has to be something that is sustained, protected, and looked at as delivering agricultural and tourism benefits and a lifestyle that we all want. So in everything, it's got to be considered in all those decisions, including the metro regional aspect. I think it's vitally important. Thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. Peter Fitzgerald.
Let's turn my mic on. I think it's very important to maintain these areas on the peninsula. Is what makes it special. Otherwise, it would just sprawl from one end to the other. We've all got a responsibility to make sure that there's responsible development and not inappropriate. I think that, as I agree with Janet, that there are a lot of things that are really good about this place, and we should be actively protecting them. That's it.
Thanks, Peter. Despi O'Connor.
Thanks, Tracy. Yes, the green wedge is majorly important. It's actually part of our food bowl here, so it needs to survive just even for that purpose alone, but also for the purpose of biodiversity, because there is so much flora and fauna out there that needs protecting, because a lot of it is on its way out, and if we don't stop and do something about it, it will be gone. The other thing is that we're lacking in open public spaces, particularly in Briars ward, for people just to be and to connect with nature. So that's vitally important, and I'd be protecting the green wedge. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks,
Despi. Bruce Rankin.
Thank you, Tracy. It's an interesting question. What role should council play? The zoning is predominantly made up by state government. It's very awkward for a council to be able to stop a lot of these developments. First of all, I'd like to say that I am absolutely in favour of the green wedge. It provides, as Despy's highlighted, fauna and flora protection. It's a massive opportunity investment as well by maintaining the green wedge, agriculture, tourism and hospitality just being a few. Maintaining the sustainability of the environment, particularly those big pockets. The Madelizer Business School project should not be going ahead, and we should certainly keep those green wedge pockets between each of the suburbs as well. That's absolutely critical. Definitely a no quarry around the area as well. We don't need something else like that. That'd be an eyesore and a massive dust bowl as well. So for the green wedge, we need to preserve it for the long-term sustainability and for our children and for the future generations.
Thanks, Bruce. Julia McCarthy.
I support the council's aim to rezone the former Madelizer Business School site to green wedge zone. I wrote a letter to Minister Wynne, and I also have recently submitted a VCAT statement of grounds and supported their GoFundMe. I think it's a very important project that we all need to get behind in Mount Eliza. I believe our green wedges need to be preserved and protected, as they include some of the most pristine and beautiful wilderness. They also provide opportunities, like others have spoken about, for recreation, food production, and they are renowned tourism areas and home to many of our rural residents. The planning scheme for the Mornington Peninsula is a complex 1,200-page document, which I'm just starting to navigate. Nevertheless, I'm willing to work hard, as it may be a complex, but it's a very crucial document to understand and to navigate to keep our natural beauty and character on the peninsula intact.
Thanks, Julia. Steve Holland.
Thank you, Tracy. So I'm opposed to the Kunyong Road development. I don't think that's appropriate for green wedge. I think our green wedge spaces should be fiercely defended. But the key part of your question is obviously what role should council play? And my overriding philosophy with these sorts of things is that the power for these decisions should be, decentralised and in the hands of the local community, which is closest to it. I'm also opposed to the new quarry proposal at Arthur's Seat. And what I'd like to see is the state government allow councils to make these decisions, closest to the local community. So I agree that they should be fiercely defended.
Thanks, Steve. Stephen Batty.
Yes, just before I forgot to say that I'm an independent, self-funded and a member of the Liberal Party. I support the retention of the green wedge. The main attraction of these scattered townships and it is regarded as a Victorian asset. It's got natural beauty and diverse landscapes, and as we've heard before, the agricultural and tourist benefits must be maintained. So I'm 100% supporting the Green Wedge.
Thank you, Stephen. Anthony Marsh.
Yeah, so I think obviously the Green Wedge is part of what makes the peninsula so special. It gives it that sort of rural, semi-rural vibe that we all know and love. I think the protection of the Green Wedge zones has become more and more important as we see pressure to chip away at these zones. And I think council have a key role in fighting and ensuring that land is used appropriately and for the community benefit. I think that involves working collaboratively with the landholders, particularly given that farmers and producers use up 40% of that land for agriculture. And obviously the Green Wedge provides a lot of biodiversity, native vegetation, flora, fauna, all those things. And we have some great bio links that connect across the peninsula through the Green Wedge zones. I think given the current review, we need to advocate strongly on behalf of our community through council to the DELT review. Thanks.
Thanks, Anthony. Peter Orton.
Look, our green wedge in open spaces are absolutely priceless. I'll be encouraging and advocating that we protect these by state legislation. I think it's fanciful to think that the urban creep is not going to happen down here. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, you know, we're the place everybody wants to come to. So if we don't protect these green wedges, they'll disappear. And I think the community needs to coordinate what we say and also how we say it. And if we don't speak with a strong voice, then our green wedges are going to be, they're just going to disappear. It's just going to happen. We know that's going to happen. So we've got to be talking together and have a strong voice.
Thanks very much, Peter. And Janet Street on this question. Janet?
Thanks, Tracy. I was just trying to unmute. Council's role is vitally important because it's protecting the interests of the local population in protecting the green wedge. It is Victoria's most important asset. It is vitally important. It is a great tourist attraction. People come down to the Mornington Peninsula to walk through the bushland and through the green wedges, and they enjoy this environment. So we're here to protect that. And I think it's a vitally important role for council to play that role. And I am against the development in Mount Eliza. It's an impact on the wildlife habitat. And I think that's what all the residents want on the peninsula, is that protection of the green wedge, which makes up about 70% of the land of the peninsula. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Janet, and thanks to all the candidates for addressing that issue. So we move now to our third question as we roll through this evening's proceedings. And there are a number of large-scale development and land use issues that are impacting the local community across the Shire. A number of candidates have referred to those in the course of the answers this evening. And a number of these have been raised in previous forums as well. The two big ones, really, the AGL floating gas hub in the Western Port and the Boundary Road quarry on Arthur's Seat. But also a lot of discussion in the northern part of the Shire around the future of the Tyab airfield, with council currently involved in a VCAT process. Some of these issues are state government planning jurisdiction. All, in one form or another, end up being presented to council for debate and discussion. As a councillor for Briars Ward, what do you see your role on council on these issues, some of which are council issues and some of which are with the state government jurisdiction? We'll start this one with Belinda Rodman.
So my belief about being a councillor is that you're there to reflect the community's voice. And you're also there to be able to examine the evidence and make sure that that evidence is thorough and comprehensive. And I think that that applies to all decision making that is presented to council. I think some of those decisions can then be also taken against the existing policies that are in place. And I'm very pleased that over the last couple of years, there have been some fairly robust strategies that have been put into place to address things like development, proposals that are going to have an impact on climate change. The council obviously voted strongly against the AGL plant. They have put into place things like the neighbourhood character study and guidelines. Those are the kind of things that we need to be pushing for and making sure that they are implemented.
Thanks, Belinda. Peter Fitzgerald.
Yes, I don't like the quarrying at Arthur's Seat. I don't think that's appropriate. The AGL thing with Crib Point, don't really know that much about it as I haven't studied it, but I am now. And on the source of it, I'm not sure that it can be balanced with the environment. So the short answer is I don't really think it's a good thing. And as far as the airfield go, it would probably be inappropriate for me to comment. However, when I was president of the Air Club many years ago, we had a great relationship with the council, and I'd like to see us have a really good relationship when we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Despy O'Connor.
Thanks, Tracy. Going back to what Belinda said before, I think the policies that are in place currently help to sort through some of these issues. Firstly, that all the issues that you talked about, Tracy, are all quite diverse. Some of them are related to the green wedge and the environment, and others are really about negotiations and about communication. And I think that's a really important thing we need to consider, that there is communication with the community groups, with the stakeholders, with all those people, so that we actually get to a point of consensus and agreement, and so that we can move forward without the huge costs that we keep getting related to VCAT as we go into those places. So communication is key. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks very much, Despy. Bruce Rankin.
Thanks, Tracy. First of all, I'd like to just acknowledge, I think Belinda really highlighted a key point there, that as councillors, we actually reflect the community's voice. We need to set aside our personal beliefs, and sometimes sitting on council, it's very challenging to do that. From the discussions that I've had over the last couple of months, it seems that the communication has broken down. And again, Despy has highlighted another component, that if we had these communications and we consulted with the community in an organised manner, we wouldn't be incurring these huge costs. And it's not council that's incurring these huge costs. It's everybody out in the community as a ratepayer. You are wearing those costs. Every time council goes to VCAT, you are wearing those costs. I'm hearing from the community that they don't want the quarry. I'm hearing from the community, no AGL, and the airfield needs more discussion.
Thanks very much, Bruce. Julia McCarthy.
Tracy, I think Julia just had an issue with her her camera. I've just got her back in. So
Sorry, thank you very much.
sorry, Julia.
Okay.
I just saw that you'd come back in and out. So yeah.
Okay. So so for the benefit, so Julia, you heard what the question is?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Thanks very much, Julia.
So council's role is to represent the community. So if we have a role in the decision, we should be acting on the community's interests. So if we have a chance to make a planning decision like we did with the Ryman development, then we should be doing that. If the decision's taken out of our hands and it's a state or federal government issue, then we should be using our connections to be heard. I did this recently with some issues around our model birth group, and I used my position in my group to be contacting my state and federal MPs to have the issues heard and to be signing petitions that were being tabled with the state government.
Thank you. Steve Holland.
Thank you. I agree with almost everything that the previous candidates have said. It is about consultation, and a lot of the time it's about mediation, perhaps not in the legal sense, but sitting down with the community and certain groups and businesses before you run off to VCAT. You mentioned 2 headline projects there, the AGL one, which I'm opposed to personally, but again, it's about representing the community's views. And the Tyabb airfield, personally, I have no issue with the airfield and I don't want to see them shut down at all. But again, you know, it's about that communication barrier, which seems to have cropped up in a lot of instances. And I think there can be more room for consultation and making sure that council is not, you know, marching straight off to VCAT on a lot of issues and making the decisions locally with the community.
Thank you, Steve. Stephen Batty. Stephen?
Yes, sorry there.
Yes, Stephen Batty.
I support the previous speakers on these topics. We need to discuss it much more at a local level. As far as the VCAT applications are concerned, one of my commitments is to review all those that are pending or in the pipeline. As far as the quarry is concerned, the general opinion from the ratepayers is a no. The AGL plant, I think it needs to be evaluated a lot more. I've had a lot of discussions with them down there. As far as the airfield's concerned, I support the continuing of the airfield. It's a great opportunity down there, and this VCAT application should be rescinded as soon as possible.
Thanks, Stephen Batty. Anthony Marsh.
So as Belinda said, we're here to represent our local community, either directly or through advocacy efforts, and communication and engagement is absolutely key here. There's diverse issues across each different ward. Obviously, none of these are in our ward, but as councillors of the Shire, we have a collective responsibility to look after the broader peninsula and the community's views. I echo Despy and Bruce's comments about VCAT and the incredible costs to our community. And I think in terms of AGL and the quarry, the community's view is loud and clear. We don't want it. As for the airfield, I think like everyone else before me, I think it's something that should stay. It's clear example of failure in open dialogue, and I think we need to pull these disputes out of litigation and get back around the table to discuss these. Thanks.
Thanks, Anthony. Peter Orton.
Look, to be honest, I think we need to think about all of we need to be more strategic about these things. Meaning all of these things are skirmishes and they're issues that are going on. I think we need to take a broader view and say, well, where do we want to be in, say, 10, 15, even 20 years' time, and say, where do these things actually fit within that framework? Now, we're talking about the Deepwater Harbour at Hastings. Now, that's been a deepwater harbour forever, and it will probably continue to have that for time again. But where does that actually fit? Meaning, how is it we can find opportunities for employment for people? The employment's got to be found somewhere. We need to be thinking, where does that actually fit in the overall scheme of things? Our transport infrastructure, which is grossly inadequate. We've got 2 roads that come down here. Now, we've got to be thinking about those sort of, they're higher order things that I think are strategic and will actually help us go forward as a community. But we need to be thinking together.
Thank you, Peter. Janet Street.
Thank you, Tracy. The questions around our role, if we are a councillor, regarding these issues that are very contentious issues for the local community, particularly those communities where they're actually being proposed to be built, such as the gas pipeline, another huge quarry at Red Hill, Arthur's Seat, and the Error Club issue. A lot of people hadn't heard about the Error Club issue, particularly in this ward. So I think a greater communication mechanism needs to occur around these major issues. I think the community directly impacted have spoken. So the role of a councillor is actually to represent those residents that you've been elected to represent and put their views across. So I know exactly what the residents that have approached me, contacted me, written to me, and I've went out campaigning and also out in previous campaigns that I've been involved with.
Thank you,
I know
Janet.
exactly what they think in this particular area. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Janet. And Dion Mullet-Trelaw.
Yeah, thanks. I hope the community know my views on AGL and the quarry. I've been campaigning on these issues, and we are hearing it loud and clear from the community, and that's the problem when council decisions or planning laws and things are taken out of the community's hands. And if the community's against some of these projects, and if council vote against these projects, and if state or federal government allow them to go ahead, that I believe that's a failure of democracy. And I think the only influence on that is donations. And there's a real problem in our country at every level of donations influencing decisions. And that's something I'm proud of as part of the Greens Party that they're campaigning against. They're trying to take influence out of politics from donations that are doing things against the community. So I'll be sure to be protesting these projects and taking them to higher levels.
Thanks, Dion. We're moving to our next question now, and I'm conscious that we are slightly behind our time. So I'm just going to keep pushing on and try and get to as many as we can. So staying with broader council issues, council declared a climate emergency in the Shire in 2019. It would be a climate emergency Shire in 2019. And has recently adopted a climate emergency plan to move to zero carbon emissions by 2040. What initiatives should council be implementing to achieve that aim? And are there any specific things in Briars Ward that you feel could contribute to that? And we'll start with Peter Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Tracy. A very complex issue, of course, and I indeed, as someone who flies an airline, or used to before COVID, we need to really address and use solar power and renewables wherever possible, and also energy saving measures such as obviously the light emitting diodes and all those sorts of things. Elimination of duplication of procedures wherever possible, and a greater emphasis on recycling. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Despi O'Connor.
Thanks, Tracy. 2040. I hope it's before then, because 2040 could well be too late. Coming back to the AGL gas line, putting the AGL gas line in down at Hastings would just further increase our dependence on fossil fuels, and we've got to move away from that. We need to move into renewables, solar and wind farms on our peninsula. I think we can do that. That can be mixed in with farming and other innovative ideas. Another big thing that's going to really push hard on the climate emergency is waste. Waste takes up 30% of our budget, and we need to decrease that, and we need to decrease it rapidly. And by decreasing waste, we actually also get rid of that landfill that goes towards our climate emergency. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Despi. Bruce Rankin.
Thank you, Tracy. My experience previously at a previous council is we actually implemented a solar farm that's currently being built on an old tip site. And that's something that, again, I've written in some of my material that I'll be advocating very hard for, that we should be doing something like that. We shouldn't be waiting, as Despi said, to 2040. We should be looking at solar very hard. We should be looking at wind extremely hard. At that other council in Nillumbik, the council would be going totally off the grid within 2 years. There is no reason why Mornington Peninsula cannot work hard towards achieving that. And that does not go just for the council buildings, but also the aquatic centres and the sporting facilities. We've got plenty of roofs that we can put solar panels on, that we can adapt and transform the cost saving back to the ratepayer. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bruce. Julia McCarthy.
I'm impressed with the commitment the council has made to this issue by declaring a climate emergency, but the focus now needs to turn on actioning the plan. I look forward to the formation of the Climate Oversight Group, which will include community representation. The plan prioritises climate emergency projects and has a 2030 target of 200 megawatts of renewable electricity to be generated locally. That's enough to power approximately 50,000 homes on the peninsula. So part of the plan is to partner with the community and businesses on renewable energy projects such as solar, wind, microgrids and more, as well as electricity distributors to improve infrastructure. I think we're well on the road.
Thanks very much, Julia. Steve Holland.
Thank you. So as Julia said, the council has done a lot of work on this, and it will really be the task for the next council to make sure that we can meet those targets, hopefully before the deadline. One of the key proposals that I really like, along the lines of what Despy mentioned, is zero to landfill. I think that's an excellent goal and very noble goal, and we should do what we can to make sure we achieve that. And obviously council can do some very direct things, such as ensuring that all... Did somebody mute me?
Yes, Stephen,
Yes.
go ahead, beg your pardon. We'll start you again.
No, that's okay. So just to make sure that all of council's services and facilities are moved onto renewable energy, and council can be a leader in this space.
Thanks very much, Steve. We didn't miss anything that you said. Stephen Batty.
Yes, look, I support the previous speakers as far as the lower emissions and renewable technologies. But I think we should have targets, and that's important to start these targets now and do that by community education. I think that the council can get the community involved. And one particular concern that I have in all this, apart from supporting the wind farms and all that, is the waste management of waste on the peninsula. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Anthony Marsh.
Yeah, so I support the declaration, and I think it's an ambitious plan, but without goals in a plan, we get nowhere. So like Despy and some of the others, I hope we're able to do this before 2040, the net zero emissions. The plan has a lot of detail. There's 100 odd pages and 21 steps, but it includes some really sensible things like zero waste, circular economy, obviously sustainable travel and transport. And in my view, this stuff just makes sense. And it's also in many cases good for business. I think we're already seeing entire industries being created to address climate action. And we've got some great projects happening on the peninsula and elsewhere. And I think this is a really good opportunity to also get involved in some really good renewable energy projects, smart agriculture. And these are areas that are of great interest to me. I look forward to seeing this develop.
Thanks, Anthony. Peter Orton.
Look, I like everybody else, I do believe we need to act on the climate emergency immediately. I'm actually really quite pleased with what the council have done, and I congratulate the previous council for the leadership they've shown. I think it's a matter of then taking that and really taking it to a higher level, because I believe, I agree with Depsy that I think we can work, if we work together, we can bring those dates down. And I'm optimistic about what will be done when we start getting our head around the elephant in the room, that we need to be acting immediately. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Janet Street.
Thank you, Tracy. The first thing I think is that people should read the Climate Emergency Action Plan that Council has put out, because it is a very good plan. Some of the targets are very, very good, and certainly the year 2040 I think is too long off. Some of the ways that the residents could actually be involved in that is actually going to the meetings and being educated around the actual action plan itself. Renewable energy projects on the peninsula. Getting rid of gas in your home could be a good start, and using electricity. Investing in infrastructure that's green. Sustainable food production. Certainly the waste management plant on the peninsula, where we can process and deal with our own waste.
Thank you, Janet.
Thanks.
Steve Holland, because of that interruption and in the interest of fairness, I do want to come back to you, so you have an uninterrupted minute on this subject, please.
Well, you know, I think, as I said before, the council plan has got a lot of detail in it, and it will be the next council's job really to make sure that it is implemented before the targets. I agree with what everybody has said about the deadline, and we should be able to achieve those sooner, provided council is working very actively. waste is a massive issue with council, and it's one of the direct things that council can influence. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is zero to landfill. I think we can make some great strides there on the Mornington Peninsula. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. So we are kind of coming close to time, and in the interest of finishing on time, we are going to move to just a final wrap-up question. Obviously, with 11 candidates, it's...
Sorry, Trey.
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, it's Dion Mullet-Trelaw. I just didn't get a chance to speak on the last topic.
I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, Dion. Of course. And... yes, of course. I beg your pardon. I've got 2 more candidates. Dion Mullet-Trelaw, thank you for the interruption and the correction. Of course, my apologies. I've got just a very long list of names here and a long spreadsheet. So I will come to you around the council achieving the 2040 carbon emissions target, and your minute starts now, Dion.
Great, thanks, Tracy. And I appreciate your time this evening too. And I could talk about this for hours. There's so much we can do at a council level on the climate emergency. I think it's fantastic that the previous council has declared this climate emergency. Net zero by 2040 is good. My policy would be 2035, and we can easily achieve that. There's things that we can do straight away that would also help with the COVID recovery in terms of jobs. I only found out this week that public bins, we have over 1,000 general waste bins, but only 75 public recycling bins across the peninsula. So that's something that we could address immediately. I've also been campaigning on curbside soft plastic recycling, which would take a lot of our waste out of landfill and help achieve that beyond zero target. In terms of energy, there's community energy projects. Quickly, if everyone looks up Hepburn Energy in Daylesford, we can do something similar.
Thanks very much, Dion. And Belinda Rodman, my apologies. 1 minute on this subject for you too.
That's okay. Well, look, I really just agree with pretty much everything that everyone else has said. There's a couple of quick things that I think could be implemented. There are, I think it's in Mount Martha at the moment, where there's the plastic-free trial, pilot trial. I think that should be expanded very quickly to both Mornington and to Mount Eliza. I'd also like to see a lot more education and promotion of the importance of not taking down trees or planting native trees when people are redeveloping their properties, because that's been having a big impact on wildlife corridors and obviously environmental issues. And I think that we should be looking at lots and lots of examples whenever possible of having community partnerships with the Shire on renewable energy projects, community partnerships such as the Hepburn Springs one that Dion mentioned. I think that those would all be very quick, easy fixes. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Belinda. And now everyone has been given their 1 minute uninterrupted. So thank you for that. We are just about 5 minutes away from 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is the finishing time that we have indicated for this evening. So the final question that I'm going to put to all the candidates tonight, and of course to remind everyone in the virtual town hall that this has been an opportunity for you to meet your candidates and have an opportunity to follow up with some of the things that have been discussed tonight, or some of the things that we haven't had a chance to get to, and I'd encourage you to do that. So the final opportunity from each of the candidate is really just a kind of a one-shot wrap really of what you might like to achieve. If you can achieve one thing during your term as a Briars Ward councillor, what would it be? And we'll start with Despi O'Connor, and we're just going to keep this really tight, 30 seconds maximum, please.
Thanks, Tracy. The big thing I wanted to leave behind is community consultation. I want to make sure that strategy is rolled out, and I want to give my community a voice. I want to lift people up and let's hear those people who are creative and who are innovative. And I also want to make sure that our communities stay connected. And if that means better footpath strategies and trails and spaces for people to be together, so be it. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Despi. Bruce Rankin.
Thanks, Tracy. 30 seconds. Geez, that's not much. Increased in community support, community groups as well. Connectivity within the community is absolutely vital. We need to look at a better strategy to bring everyone together. Allow that consultation in that process as well. But to summarise, community support.
Thanks very much, Bruce. Julie McCarthy, if you can achieve one thing in your term as a Briars Ward Councillor, what will it be?
I would say accessibility, so providing better safe beach access, better car parks, better community footpaths and bike tracks such as the Mornington Safe Link project between Peninsula Link Trail and Circa Reserve in Mornington. Also the BMX facilities for children on the peninsula, and I've actually started a community project for this, which I will see through regardless of the results of the election.
Thanks, Julia. Steve Holland.
I think the one thing would be better community infrastructure and a really clear articulated list of council priorities, you know, whether it's resurfacing a road right through to major infrastructure projects. I think the community really wants to know where their particular pet project is in the list of priorities, and making sure that then there's some accountability in terms of making sure that council's priorities match up with the community's priorities. So I'd like to see that achieved.
Thanks, Steve. Stephen Batty. Stephen, are you there?
Number one, remember we're here for 4 years. Number one is to improve public transport on the peninsula, and long term to have that railway extended from Frankston. However, in the short term, sorry, not in the short term, that our primary thing is to protect the assets and the environment of the Shire and support the local businesses and the employment opportunities for all our families and population that live on the Mornington Peninsula.
Thanks very much. Stephen, Anthony Marsh?
So yeah, we've got 4 years. So I want to deliver a dramatic and positive shift in culture across council and build a reputation with our business community where council is viewed more as a collaborative and enabling partner, not as an enemy. I want our council to be a leader in service delivery, governance and transparency, and to broadly restore confidence across our community in our council. I think a good measure of success in this would be if we can leave a council that's referred to by others as an example of best practice. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anthony. Peter Orton.
Just 4 quick things to think longer term with our major infrastructure needs, to value our relationships and our connectedness, to work collaboratively together, and the last one would be to be careful and aware of those that are vulnerable in our community and help them also.
Thanks, Peter. Janet Street.
Thank you, Tracy. I've got a number of areas that I'd like to see the council and the whole peninsula leading in addressing climate change. I think that's a prime opportunity to be leaders in that area. We've got the green wedge, we've got a beautiful environment, we've got people that want to maintain that. Let's lead it. Seriously, the opportunity's there. We've got a really good climate action plan. Let's go for it.
Thanks, Janet. Dion Mullet-Trelaw.
Thanks. Yeah, if I could pick one thing, it's really hard, but it would be that curbside soft plastic recycling. It's so much of our waste, and we could be the first council to implement it in Australia. There is a trial going on in central New South Wales at the moment, and that's being supported by business. If that trial works, I think we should jump on board, and if we could be the first council in Australia to implement this, we could be a country leader in this field.
Thanks, Dion. Belinda Rodman.
Well, I think at the end of our term, if we were elected, the best thing we could say is that we actually managed to steer everyone through COVID and actually recover quickly and sustainably and get our community back up and running in the way that we all would like to see it. And just from my universal perspective, I want to see a universal design policy implemented and as the basis for all future planning and strategies going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. And Peter Fitzgerald.
I think we should also, number one aim would be to recover from the COVID, of course, create a sustainable, consultative and positive place that produces positive outcomes for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter. And that's taken us to just past 9 o'clock. So from me, I want to thank all the candidates for your contribution, your thoughtfulness. It's been really illuminating and valuable for everyone involved in the virtual town hall tonight. And I'd like to thank and hand over now to my friend Georgia Simmons, who has pulled these events together and has done a mighty job. So thank you to you all. Thank you for being part of it. And over to Georgia.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I just want to really congratulate and thank Tracy to pull together and to get 11 candidates on the stump, so to speak, and to have shared, I think everybody on the call, I certainly have, but everybody on the call, I think has got to know the candidates a lot better and what you stand for and what you can bring to council. I just want to thank the candidates. I want to wish them well. I also encourage the voters out there to vote well and to use your vote well. This has been recorded, so this will be posted on the Facebook page. So I encourage you, if you know friends, family or other residents and you found this useful, to share that. I will also be reposting the candidates' details. So if you've got any questions of them, they'll have mobile phones and all the details that have been already produced in electoral rolls and that sort of thing. I'll be sharing those. I do encourage you to, if you've got any questions, to go and reach out to the candidates. I want to say a big thank you. Thank you for spending your Thursday night with us. I hope you have found it useful. I certainly have. And for my mother and father who are residents of the Briars, I hope they found this useful. So thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Good luck, everyone. Good night.
You should have got a screenshot of all the candidates.
We've got a video.
Yeah, that's right.